Right. Hi, everyone. My name is Ruth. I work on content here at SimplePractice, and we're just so happy to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us for our insurance rates, raises, and resignations webinar. We're joined today by billing expert and therapist Barbara Griswold, who will introduce herself in a second. But for now, let's go over a few housekeeping items. Just to go over a disclaimer, SimplePractice does not provide insurance, billing, or legal advice. The views and opinions expressed by the presenter are not those of or endorsed by SimplePractice or its affiliates. Now to go over some webinar logistics. To answer a question that we get all the time, yes, these slides and the recording of this webinar will be sent to you after the webinar, so look out for it on your email soon afterwards. All the recordings for our Ask a Biller series are also going to be found at simplepractice.com/Ask a Biller series. So head over there if you want to find this webinar later on or any of our other Ask a Biller webinars with Barbara. If you have any questions regarding your SimplePractice account and you need some help from our team, please go to support.simplepractice.com. You can also find these links of the Ask a Biller series as well as the support page on the right in our Docs tab, which we'll talk about next. So if you look to the right of the slide presentation during this webinar, you'll notice the chat box. Many of you have already made really great use of this by introducing yourselves. So hi, everyone. This is a really good place for you to discuss the content of the webinar with each other, and also a good place to report any technical issues you might be having to alert us so we can look into it. While in the chat box, you can also toggle over to the right one more tab, and you'll see that Docs tab where you'll find links to Barbara's website, a lot of the amazing resources that are mentioned in this webinar, and a link to our Help Center or support page as mentioned before, and that pre-recorded webinar page as well. The great thing about these webinars is that you can also ask questions that we can answer at the end. So if you have a question for Barbara, please toggle to the furthest right tab, that Q&A part, which is going to be the place where you ask questions, and we will then have Barbara answer those live questions at the very end. So stay tuned. Now I'll turn it over to Barbara.
Well, thanks, Ruth, and thanks for inviting me. Always happy to work with SimplePractice. Many of you know me, many of you don't. My name is Barbara Griswold. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and author of Navigating the Insurance Maze, the therapist's complete guide to working with insurance and whether you should. And I have worked in the business for 33 years as a therapist, working with dozens of insurance plans, and I now provide trainings to individual therapists and to groups nationwide about all that stuff that you never learned in grad school, like how to work with insurance, how to build your practice, what do you need in your documentation, how about insurance audits, all kinds of stuff. So my goal, it says, is to help therapists feel as confident about their business as they do about their therapy. All right. So today we're talking about rates, resignations, and raises, which is a fun topic. All of the money side, which is a part of our job that we often feel really uncomfortable about. Somehow we would really love to be able to just do the part of our job that we love, which is the interaction with clients and helping them live better, happier lives without having to deal with fees and raises and insurance plans and all that has to, the whole side that has to do with getting paid for what we do, right? I mean, we want to get paid, but there's a lot of issues that we have that are emotional, and then there's also just practical issues. So we're going to deal with at least more of the practical today. So first we need to start out with some definitions that I'm going to be using a lot. A network provider, or what is that? That's some clinician, some therapist who has signed a contract with an insurance plan to provide services to their members. Okay, so if you have agreed to be a network provider with X insurance plan, one of the things you've agreed is to file claims for that member, for that client. You can't give the claims to the client and say, you get reimbursed. No, I have to, as the network provider, I'm agreeing to file claims and only collect from that client their co-payment, which is whatever their portion of the fee is going to be according to their insurance policy. Just to make it clear, co-payment is like if they have a flat fee policy where they pay $20 each time or $30 each time. A co-insurance is if they have a co-insurance policy, is a percentage if they need to pay a percentage of the rate that you have agreed on with the insurance plan. Okay. So basically, I have agreed to file claims if I'm a network provider, and the main other thing that I've agreed to is that I'm going to accept a contracted rate discount. So if I do have a contract with X insurance company, I know what X is going to pay me for every session. There is, in my contract, it states, for every session, Barbara, you're going to get paid X amount of dollars for this type of a session. Now, what about an out-of-network provider, often called an OON provider? This basically means you don't have a contract with the client's insurance plan. You're free to negotiate any fee with the client that you want to, because there's no limitation factor. There's no contract. Usually the client's going to pay you in full, and you don't have to submit any bills to the insurance plan. We have a whole SimplePractice talk on out-of-network, what out-of-network providers need to know about billing, so check that one out. But super bill. So what's a super bill? If you're out-of-network client, okay, you're not in network with their insurance plan, they have out-of-network benefits. So all your out-of-network clients are probably going to have benefits to get reimbursed by the insurance plan. And that's if they have a PPO or a POS plan. Wait, I said that wrong. If you're out-of-network client, not all of them are going to have the ability to get reimbursed by their insurance plan, only if they have a PPO or a POS plan. I know it's all so complicated, right? And they want to seek insurance reimbursement, you're going to give them a super bill, which is basically an invoice for your services. We call it a super bill because it has to have certain things on it that are a little bit more. It's a souped up invoice. You got to have your diagnosis and CPT codes and things like that make it a little bit more than a normal invoice. And the landing page, I'm going to talk about it a lot of times today. This is just something that I've created so that I don't have to give you 1,000 different links and to the articles I'm going to discuss and the freebies I'm going to discuss. I'm going to put them all on one page so that you can go there and get everything, all the resources, the handouts, those article links that I'm going to mention. So for this webinar, I really want you to write this down because we get a lot of questions afterwards. You're going to need to get all these cool resources for free. You're going to go to, right, you see this at the bottom, The Insurance Maze, write it down now, .com/rates. Then you're going to enter your email and you're going to get immediate access to the page with tons of stuff that you're going to be really glad you did. And I'll tell you why as we go along. So again, it's theinsurancemaze.com/rates. Enter your email quickly, and then you'll go right to the resource page, landing page. Okay. So let's take some of the pre-submitted questions. You guys asked hundreds, literally hundreds and hundreds of questions. Here's some that we have picked out that were often asked. So the first part, we're going to talk about reimbursement rates from insurance plans. Question, I charged the insurance plan $150 for a session, but on the explanation of benefits, it listed $100 as the allowed amount. What is an allowed amount? So let's go back on this. So you charge is $150, but what's the explanation of benefits? That's a page that you would get back from the insurance plan saying how they processed the claim. So often called the EOB. It listed $100 at the allowed amount. What does that mean? Okay, let's parse this down. The allowed amount is basically a cap that an insurance plan can put on your rate in terms of the maximum that they're going to reimburse. They don't really care what you charge, they're going to have a maximum. Now, if you're an in-network provider, it's going to be your contracted rate. If you bill them for $150, they don't care, because if your contracted rate with them, the rate that's in your contract is $100, they're going to say the allowed amount is your contracted rate. You can bill them for $5,000. They're going to look at your contract and say, no, this provider is a $100 provider. That's all we're going to pay her. Now, if you're an out-of-network provider, you've never signed a contract with that plan, and you give a client a super bill for your, let's say, $150 session, it may come back to the client, and the client, it might say that, oh, we think 150 is too much. We are going to allow only $100 of that, and then we'll pay related to that. So they're basically putting a cap. They're slicing off what they think is too much. So the allowed amount is often based on what they think is the usual, customary, and reasonable rate, which the plan has decided is fair. So they're trying to keep you from saying, oh, I'm going to charge $400. No, they're going to decide what is the amount that they're willing to reimburse. What do insurance plans base their reimbursement rates on? Great question. So there's a number of factors. And the key factors I would say are, number one, your location, your zip code. I am in, for example, the San Francisco Bay Area, and maybe that I would get paid a different amount than a Beverly Hills therapist. If somebody who's in the boondocks may not get paid as much as someone who's, in New York City, Manhattan. So therapist location and zip code, they're going to have different amounts that they might reimburse you based on what they think is the going rate of therapists in the area, but also just, the cost of living in that area. Demand for services, provider supply, they may be paid more if they really need somebody in your area, and they don't have many providers. That one's not as much of a driving factor. Your provider practice size, a group practice might be able to get more than an individual, especially a really large group, because you're able to offer them a spectrum of services. Your license is a key determining factor. A licensed psychologist is almost always going to be paid more than a master's level clinician. Service type. Clearly, what a 60-minute session is going to get paid more than a 30-minute session. So when you joined the plan might actually be a key factor. People who joined more recently might actually be being paid more than if you joined 20 years ago or 10 years ago. It's kind of converse. You would think that those people who had been there longer should be paid more, but sometimes there's been a raise and it didn't go across the board and just new people are getting it. So, if you ever compared notes with other people on the plan, here's the shocker. You're going to find out that lots of people on the plan are getting different amounts, and we're going to talk more about that. Again, the usual, customary, and reasonable rate, this is their terms, are often based on what similar providers in your area charge. So they may be looking at what other areas providers in your area charge. And private health plans may use a percentage of the Medicare rate. So they may be saying, oh, whatever Medicare rates go up and down, when you join or when we reimburse, we may use a percentage of what Medicare rates are. Now, but why would providers in the same office with the same license be getting different rates? That's another question I've heard a lot. Well, it could be that other provider asked for a raise and you never did. But I would say more times than not, it's a complete mystery to me why sometimes therapists, many therapists, are getting different rates than myself, and sometimes quite a bit higher. And I asked them, did you get asked for a raise? No. So sometimes rates seem to be very, like a dice roll. Like when they were determining rates, they just, we're rolling dice and saying, okay, we'll give you $80. And the next person, we'll give you $90. I don't know. So just kind of know that this is not so scientific as it seems to, but it's also, yeah, I know, we'll stop there, yeah. Can I find out a plan's reimbursement rate before applying? What about Medicare rates? So with private plans, not usually. You usually can't find out what their rates are before applying, which seems ridiculous, right? I mean, you should be able to ask them, hey, what are your rates so I know whether I want to bother applying? But they don't usually want to bother giving out that kind of, they don't give out that kind of private information until you make all the effort of applying. You can try, but good luck on that one. Now with Medicare, it is different. Medicare will tell you ahead of time exactly what you will be paid in your area, and it varies for parts of the country. So on the landing page, I have an article, if you haven't seen it, which tells you how to calculate your Medicare rates, what they would be or what they will be if you are part of Medicare. And it's a little complex, but the article is at our landing page here. So the link is, so again, go to theinsurancemaze.com/rates, enter your email, and then look for the Medicare article link, and it'll give you that information. Do all health plans pay the same rate for the same service? No. You're going to find wide variety. Some health plans are going to pay, it could be $40, $50 more than some other health plans, could be even more. So you could be providing a 60-minute session, and 9 different health plans are going to pay 9 different amounts for that same service. Yeah, I know. Will health plans automatically increase my reimbursement rates over time? Great question. Some will, but don't expect it. You would think that would make sense, especially since your cost of living is automatically going up. But many plans I was with for 20 years and never got a raise, an automatic raise, that is. So it is something that you need to keep on your radar, that may not be coming for you. Okay, this is a little bit complex. For my out-of-network clients, I do what I call courtesy billing. I bill their insurance for them. Then I collect from the client after the insurance pays. Recently, I got a sudden drop in reimbursement. When I called the plan, I was told it had something to do with data eyesight or multi-plan or zealous. What the hell is going on, basically? Okay, so let's back up. So this is someone who I don't have a contract with their plan, but I'm trying to help out my client. So instead of collecting in full, I say, look, I'll submit the claim to your insurance, and then whatever they pay, I'll turn around and collect the rest from you. So what's the problem here? The problem is maybe at first I was submitting my claim for my $200 visit, and the insurance plan was paying, and I was turning around to the client and everything was fine. Then all of a sudden, instead of paying $100, they started paying $40, the insurance plan. What the heck went on? Called the plan, and I'm told it's something to do with data eyesight, multi-plan, zealous. Why would I have a sudden drop in reimbursement? I talked to you about this because it's happening to a lot of therapists and it's really important. So I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but just kind of to talk about it. If there's a danger of billing for out-of-network clients, and your rates can drop suddenly. So if you're an out-of-network therapist, your reimbursement from any plan is not guaranteed. That's something to keep in mind. So plans may suddenly reduce their reimbursement without any warning. And it's going on like mad now. Insurance plans are hiring these organizations, Data Eyesight, MultiPlan, Zealous, to go around and do repricing and just say, we think we were paying you too much before. Now we're going to pay you much less. Like some of them are significantly less than what they were paying before. So because of this, I strongly recommend that you collect in full from your out-of-network clients, your self-pay clients, and don't do these courtesy billing where you're out of money on their behalf. If you want to just submit the claim for them after you've gotten paid, okay. But don't put yourself in a position where you could lose a ton of money and then you're in a bad position. So if you do do this kind of billing for out-of-network clients, do read my article on this whole topic. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. And the link to that article, the Data Eyesight MultiPlan article, is on our landing page, theinsurancemaze.com/rates. And then enter your email. Okay. Is there a way to get more money when I do longer sessions, like 90 or 120 minutes? Yeah, this is a whole huge topic, but the answer is not usually. The CPT code 90837, which is for a 60-minute individual session, is for 53 minutes and up. Right now, the insurance plans have taken away our best ways of coding for longer sessions. Not that the insurance plans took it away, but the American Medical Association, who does the CPT coding, took away our ability to code for something longer. So we are usually stuck with this, but it's an ongoing thing to watch. And I have an article about billing for extended sessions and a lot more detail about this. And again, I'm putting that at the insurancemaze.com/rates. This is a huge issue for therapists. A lot of us do longer sessions. And what are your options? Can you build a client for the extra time? It's all discussed in that article. All right, let's talk about raises. Can you really get a raise from a health plan? Well, I often, when people sign up for this, sometimes for the raises section more than anything else. One survey that I saw found that low reimbursement rate was the biggest therapist complaint about insurance panels, right? Big surprise there. No. Yet 61% said they had never asked for a rate increase. This is kind of a high number when you think about it, that we have this pain point, and yet 61% of us have never tried to ask for a raise. Why? I mean, let's look at some of the main key answers to that. I didn't know that it was a possible thing to do, that to ask for a raise. Number two, the answer given, I didn't know how to go about it. A number three answer given, I didn't think they'd give me one, even if I asked for one. So there's a lot of why bother, they're not going to give me one, or I don't know where to go to ask for it, or how to ask for it, or why, but probably the biggest reason is I didn't know it was even possible. Yet 40% in those survey had requested a rate increase had been successful. So that's not small, 40% of people. So that's pretty cool. So I wouldn't expect that if you're going to ask for a raise, that every single plan that you ask for it is going to say yes. But even if you got 40%, that's a pretty high of the plans that you ask. That was pretty good. Even if you got one or two to say yes to a raise increase, that can really make a huge difference in your income. Can I negotiate a higher reimbursement rate before joining a plan? I would say usually not. Sometimes you can. I have been successful either helping someone do that a couple of times or doing it myself a couple of times. And I would say it's usually for if you're a bilingual therapist or a multilingual therapist, you can sometimes in the door say, hey, I have this, I'm a bilingual therapist. They often will pay more for that. I did one time because I was negotiating with an EAP, an employee assistance program, and I said, hey, I have critical incident stress debriefing training. I've gone out and done employee wellness workshops. I've gone out and done mandatory substance abuse trainings for employers. So I feel like I want more money, basically. And they said, okay, we'll negotiate a expert contract for you. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. So they actually, gave me a much higher rate, which was very nice. So can't hurt to try, but do know that it can delay your getting into that plan. So how would I go about asking for a raise? Well, I'm going to outline that for you. So here's 6 steps. First, I would write a raise request letter. And if you need help, you can contact me, but I'm going to give you a sample raise request letter. Yay! Once you've written yours, then call the health plan and ask where to send your letter. But be prepared to give your pitch on the phone. So that may seem backwards, like why wouldn't I just call them first? Because when you're putting together your letter, you're putting together your argument and your bullet points about why you think you deserve it, and you're wording it. So you want to have that letter and those bullet points all done before you call them, because sometimes they'll say, okay, I'll talk to you right now about that. Tell me why you think you deserve a raise. And you want to have all your little bullet points in a row there. Now, very frequently they will say, "Oh, no, we're not giving raises. You go away," kind of thing. We only give periodic automatic raises. We don't do individual raises. Don't let them dismiss you. I would say, "Well, can you give me the name of the head of the network relations or whatever?" Or can you give me the address for provider relations or something? Just try to get basically somewhere to send your letter. Don't be put off. If they just won't give it to you, hang up and call back and then try to get another person and maybe use a little fake voice or something. Say, hi, I just want to get the physical address or the fax or the email of the provider relations. And don't even mention the word raise. They may be like, whenever you ask for a raise, they may be taught to kind of shut you down. And then email your letter or fax it or snail mail it to every address you have for that plan. And then I would say allow 4 to 6 weeks. Follow up if you don't get a response. And if you get rejected, try again in 6 months and keep really good records. Basically, here's a little file. I keep little files on. Okay, X health plan. I called them on this date, or I sent the letter on this date. Follow up. I calendar, in the end of the month, if I haven't heard back from them, to follow up with them. And then if they say no, I'm going to write, okay, I'm going to put on my calendar 6 months. Try, asking for raise for X health plan. So just don't let this fall off your radar. What should I say to the health plan when asking for a raise? Good question. So highlight what makes you stand out. Sometimes we read, well, I'm really good with anxiety and depression. Well, I hope that all of us are. That doesn't really make you stand out. That doesn't make them want to pay more for you. Anyone who joins the panel probably knows how to treat anxiety and depression. So we think in terms of why would a health plan pay more for you than they're paying anyone else on the panel? So one of the things I mentioned earlier that is probably the most significant thing you have going is if you are bilingual or multilingual. So point out, I can conduct therapy in, multiple languages, including blah, blah, and blah, blah. And that also basically saying, well, why is that so important to the health plan? Like I can serve your members who are Spanish speaking, let's say, or this language who that you don't have enough providers on the panel to serve. So important. What about your specialties? And again, maybe ones that other people on the panel don't have that are really important. How about licensure in other states? If you are licensed in multiple states, that's a good thing to call out to say, hey, health plan, I can provide services to people in multiple states. That's more members that I can serve. You're basically getting 2 for 1 here. How about specialty in addiction or eating disorders? These are ones, again, that's kind of something that they might be willing to pay extra for, particularly, I would say, eating disorders. Your experience in training in evidence-based treatment. So highlight those, especially they want to know if you have brief symptom-focused treatments like CBT, DBT, EMDR, ABA, trauma-informed treatment, mindfulness-based stress reduction. I don't know if I say this later, but about ABA, if you work with autistic kids or kids with ADHD, that can be especially something to highlight. If you have special training or experience in critical incident debriefing, as I mentioned, that I was able to get a raise because of that, employee wellness workshops that you might have done for. If you use objective tests to measure symptoms, like, the PHQ-9 or the GAD-7 or whatever that, kind of tell them, hey, I use objective tests such as the blah, 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 blah to measure symptoms and to track progress. They like that you are not just going in and nodding your head each week, that you're actually trying to track whether clients are getting better and that this is working. So insurance plans usually like to kind of, I don't know if they'll pay more specifically for that, but again, this is all part of what you put out to them. If you work with special populations, that is particularly if you feel like they're underserved so LGBT, veterans, and you may not be surprised, but children, working with children or teens may be an underserved population for that health plan. So highlight hey, I work with children, and a lot of therapists don't. A lot of therapists only see adults. And here are the type of kids I work with. And again, don't just say anxious and depressed, but maybe you've worked with high-risk kids or suicidal kids or kids right out of the hospital or kids that you've had to put in the hospital. Maybe kids who are cutting. So try to say, look, I can handle difficult kids if that's something that you do. Continuing. So what about diversity? Your diversity can be something that they may actually want to keep. So if you're a therapist of color, or in any way you are diverse, if you're you identify as LGBT, if there's some way that you want to say, hey, because I can bring diversity to your provider panel, this is really essential. You really need a diverse panel, because it could be that, your members of color are going to seek out providers of their same race or their same culture, and that this can lead to better outcomes in therapy that research shows. So kind of connect the dots for them. Hey, this is important that you have diversity on your panel, And this is how it can actually lead to better outcomes. Always be thinking of how it's going to save them money, or I don't want to say they don't care about wonderful therapy you're providing, but they're not going to, let me just say this, they're not going to probably care that you're a supervisor or that you went to certain educational situations. They don't really care about your educational background. They're really looking at what services can you provide to our clients. Also, don't forget to look at old experience. And that means, like, for example, before I went to private practice, I worked at a substance abuse treatment facility for a year and a half. And I did inpatient, structured outpatient, all kinds of stuff. Now, people are like, well, I don't want to write that down because I don't want to take those addicts anymore in my private practice. Yes, but highlight that this is great experience that you got. And the people who are reading this aren't going to be like, oh, let's send her as many addicts as we can. They're just saying, oh, she's got some great experience. And you should connect the dots there. So I got this great experience, and that makes me better able to assess and refer and treat, addiction clients when they come my way. And I know about 12-step resources. So tell them why that matters and why they should pay more for it, because that was great training I got that other people didn't have. And you probably have great training that I never got that makes you a better therapist and makes it so that they should pay more for you. Also, if it's impressive, tell them how long you've been with the plan, how long since your last raise, maybe, how many members you see. Are you a high volume provider? If you only have one client, then this is not something, but if you have, 12 of their clients, I might say, hey, you're 45% of my practice are Blue Cross members or whatever. So, just saying I'm a high volume provider. I see a lot of your people. I really want to continue to provide services, but, I really don't know if I can continue at the current rate. So you'll see that in the sample letter that you can download. So other tips, as I said, it's kind of a dice roll about raises. There are people that I coach getting raises, and I think, I can't believe this person's going to get one, and they get one, a raise, that is. And other people that I think, oh, this person's definitely going to get a raise, but not definitely, but has a really good chance, and they don't get one. So don't assume that you can't get a raise without one of the things I just talked about. Just get up there, tap dance, and, you never know what's going to happen. I had a colleague who did not have probably any of the things on here that I just mentioned, and she consistently got raises. I'm not sure how. So because it's a not sure how thing, go ahead and ask, right? And I would recommend that you don't whine or make threats about resigning. Focus on what makes you worth more money. And a final thing, you can use their online provider directory sometimes to cite a network inadequacy. You can go just type in Anthem provider directory. Let's say if you were trying to get a raise out of Anthem. And one thing, I was helping one person, and she spoke Farsi, and I said, oh, okay, well, let's look at this. How many Farsi speaking providers do they have in your county? And found only 2. And yet I looked up and I said, oh, let's look up how many Farsi speakers are in your county. And there's ways to find out this information. So like, she has huge amount of Farsi speakers, and they probably a lot of members on there. And yet there only had 2 Farsi speaking providers. So if there's ways that you can say to them, hey, I have this expertise, and on your, let's say it's eating disorders, and I look on your provider directory and there's only 2 people who actually provide eating disorders, that's something to call to their attention. Provide eating disorder treatment. Okay, so how am I going to help you with this? I mentioned on our landing page, there is a sample raise request letter. Yay! So you can download this, you can cut and paste, you can use it as a template, you can borrow it in any way you want to. Also, there's a lot of other great resources on, and you can join my mailing list. Again, it's theinsurancemaze.com/rates. Please, please, please write that down. I get a lot of follow-up questions afterwards saying, what was that? What was that landing page again? Okay. Should I ask for a specific dollar amount for each CPT code I use? Yeah, I recommend that. And, it's up to you how much you want to ask for. Basically, if for 90837, let's say you're getting paid $100 now and you want to, you could say, I'd like to get $120 for that, right? And use every possible CPT code you could bill for. I just ask, what do you want to ask for? And if you're ready to quit and you want to just like go really high and say, I'm going to ask for 140, go ahead. It's possible they can come back somewhere in between, but sure, there's no right answer to how much more to ask for. Will asking for a raise trigger an audit? I would say no. I have not usually seen this. One person said they thought it seemed close to an audit, but I'd say for the most part, that's not something to be concerned about. Okay, let's talk about resigning. I don't want to resign, but I don't want more insurance clients. Can I tell a new insurance client that my insurance slots are full, but that I can see them if they pay privately? All right, can I steer basically insurance clients away from using their insurance? So your contract does not bind you that you have to take every plan member who contacts you. However, it is a violation of your contract to say, I'm not taking any insurance clients, but I'll see you if you pay privately. You can't turn insurance clients into private pay clients. So if you don't want to take new insurance clients, you either have to tell that potential client, I'm sorry, I'm full, or you have to resign from the panel so that eventually you can see that person privately, or see new people from that plan privately. But you're not off the hook unless, well, I don't even want to go there. Yeah, so you really can't do that. What should I think about before I resign? So a few things to consider before you exit. Number one, have you tried asking for a raise if money is the main issue? How many clients come to you because you're contracted with that health plan? So sit down, think about how many of them are coming to you because you're contracted with that health plan. Are you willing to work a little harder at marketing your practice if this referral source goes away? Some of us who hate working with insurance don't realize what a wonderful, I don't want to say wonderful, but what a referral source it is for us. And when you quit that health plan, that easy referral source goes away, and suddenly you may be having more empty spots. So are you willing to work harder to market your practice to get those self-pay clients? Now, the other one I think is an important one. How many of your current clients who are with that health plan can afford to see you if you go off that plan, if they had to pay privately? Okay. So if you have 5 clients from X health plan, I'd be kind of chatting with them and saying, what if I'm thinking about leaving your health plan, is this something that you could pay out of pocket and continue? Would you, blah, 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 blah. And are you willing to lose some clients? Because usually when you leave a health plan, you're going to lose some clients. You're not going to be able to keep all of them. Probably some people are not going to be able to afford to pay out of pocket. But something to keep in mind also is you might be able to see fewer clients and make the same income even when you leave a health plan. So for example, if you're seeing 4 insurance clients and that's $80, that's the same as 2 private clients at $160. So, even losing 2 clients, let's say, if 2 of them were paying self-pay, you might be taking in the same amount of income and not having to deal with some of the insurance hassles that come outside of the session of recredentialing and submitting claims and following up on missing claims or missing payments or checking coverage or all that good stuff. So what are the steps to resign from an insurance company? Okay, so here's a couple steps. So for Medicare, it's a little different. Medicare is a whole different ball of wax. If you are currently a Medicare provider, you're going to have to submit an opt-out affidavit to Medicare saying, I want to leave. And then you have to have all your Medicare private pay clients who want to see you to sign a Medicare private pay agreement. Again, I have a Medicare article on all of that at theinsurancemaze.com/rates. Now for private insurance plans, which is pretty much everyone, not everyone else, but some plans will have an online resignation, your ability to do that. But for most, I would say call the health plans provider relations department and say how long, first of all, that I want to resign from the plan. How much time do I need to give? So in your contract, usually, and most of us don't keep our contracts, you promise to give 60, 90, 120 days, something like that. So verify how much notice that you have said that you would give to resign. And let's say they tell you it's 90 days. Okay. So then you're going to ask where to send your resignation letter and then ask them to list you as unavailable for new referrals for the next 90 days. You don't want to get new clients. If that's the case, you might want to get some new clients, but you'd have to tell each person who comes, hey, I'm leaving your health plan in 90 days. You still want to start with me. And then email, fax, and mail your resignation to all the addresses you have for the plan, including if the employee assistance plan, if you're part of that. And then follow up after 4 weeks if you don't get any response. Because what's happening out there, and I can't sum it up quickly enough, but is a lot of times you're sending the resignation letter and you think you're off the plan and you start working with people out of network and you're taking their self-pay money and maybe they say, could you give me a super bill to submit to my plan? And you're like, sure. And the plan comes back and says, you're not off the plan. We don't know what you're talking about. You say, well, I sent a resignation letter. Well, we didn't get it, blah, blah, blah. So you have to hound them about resignation. You need to get something in the mail that says, yes, we received your resignation. As of this date, you are off the plan. And so you don't consider that you're off the plan until you get written confirmation. And they may give you a different end date than you think that it should be, but followed by theirs. And then after that end date, call back to the plan and confirm you've been removed. Sometimes you haven't. So again, hound them. Once I submit my resignation letter, what do I need to do then? I want to rush through this, but it's really important. Tell your clients before the insurance plan does. Discuss their feelings, obviously, about ending, but talk to them about ongoing treatment options. I tell clients you have 3 options. You can continue with me and pay privately. If they have a PPO or a POS plan, they may be able to seek out of network reimbursement. So there may be some reimbursement there. I can refer them to a network therapist, and I can mention the possible benefits of seeing somebody new. Or we could end this chapter of therapy that maybe they're coming to a great ending point anyway. So document your discussion, their response. If you are ending, I have a great articles on how to make a good goodbye for your client clinically. And I really like this article. So that's at theinsurancemaze.com/rates. How to make that great, a good ending for people who often have had very bad endings in their lives. Send an email and letter to the client following up. And, here's what I told you in that session. And if the client continues, have them sign a private pay agreement, which basically states that you're no longer going to bill insurance for them. They agree to pay privately. What's their new fee? Blah, 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 blah. And I have this form available in my practice forms packet, which is a purchase link is on our landing page at theinsurancemaze.com/rates. Once I decide to resign from insurance plans, how can I help clients look into if they have out-of-network coverage? Well, again, I have a handout for you on our landing page, which is called Out-of-Network Check and Coverage Handouts. And you can give it to the client, and it says checking your coverage to see an out-of-network therapist. And they can call, or if you want to make the call, it'll say what questions that they should ask to find out if they can get coverage to see you. So it's a real helpful handout. Again, free to you because you attended. It's on the landing page at theinsurancemaze.com/rates. So we'll come back to that slide in a minute, but we're going to take live question and answers now.
All right, great. So we're going to start taking, can we go to the next slide?
Oh,
yes, great. So we have our first one, which is, can a private practice owner opt to be self-pay only while still paneling their employees?
That's a bit complicated. It really depends how you credentialed with your insurance. So if you wanted to be part of X insurance plan, it's a bit complicated. I'd say it's possible, but let's say I'd have to think about it, but I think it's true. The way you need to think about it is when if you are so the practice owner, let's say it's a group practice, we're going to call it South Coast Counseling. So South Coast Counseling decides to get on the insurance panel. So if your bill, and every time a bill comes through with South Coast Counseling's tax ID number, the health plan is going to say, okay, this is in network. So if the employees all are billing through that tax ID number, that should all be seeing in network. So the practice owner, if she wants to be self-pay, she just can't bill using the group practice tax ID number, or else it'll come as in network. So I think it's going to be a little awkward, but it depends. Each insurance plan is a little different. I think it's possible, but she might have to use her own tax ID number instead of the groups. And I don't know if she wants to do that. So, yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the next one. Thank you. Linda asks, we get a contract amendment from time to time with a list of the rates that apply. They are basically saying this is part of your contract now and you have to accept it or drop the contract. Can you still request a raise, or does it invalidate your contract?
It's hard to say something very generally for the whole country. Contracts are a little different, state to state, policy to policy, their insurance plan to insurance plans. But I would say at any time you can request a raise, and all they can say is no. So I don't think it validates your contract, but it's certainly a good question for that insurance plan. I think I would contact them to be sure it doesn't invalidate your contract, but I wouldn't be concerned it's going to invalidate your contract to request a raise. I wouldn't think so.
Okay, thanks, Barbara. The next one is, how often can I ask for a raise?
Yeah, there's no magic number. One thing that I mentioned in the slides was I would consider every 6 months if they turn you down. One thing that's kind of a similar question is, how soon can I ask for a raise if I just joined a plan? Some plans won't even consider a raise request until you've been with them 2 years, or at least 1 year. So I definitely wouldn't ask for one in the first year, but just know that they may say, we won't consider it till you've been with us 2 years. That's fine. Now you learned. And then I'd go back to them and at the 2-year mark. So again, I always mark my calendar like, okay, remember this. Otherwise I forget.
All right, thank you. And Amanda asks, can the out-of-network provider still charge the full 150 rate, even if the insurance company gives the allowed amount that is 100?
Absolutely. Good question. When you're out of network, the insurance plan has you can charge $3,000 if you want. The insurance plan has no way to tell you what you can charge. They only can say what we're willing to reimburse for, right? So you can, like I said, charge $3,000 a session if you want to, and the client has, agreed to pay that. And they turn in the insurance reimbursement, and they say, "Oh, we're only going to pay $100 of this, or we're going to pay probably less." They're going to allow 100, and then they're going to say, "Well, but our out-of-network reimbursement might be only 50% of that, so maybe the client only gets $50 back." Whatever. So yes, you can charge whatever you want when you're out of network. There's some misinformation out there that you are bound by insurance plan fees, and that's inaccurate.
Okay, great. The next question is, can therapists bill a client for services that an insurance deems not medically necessary?
Absolutely. So basically, this person is referring to insurance plans are only going to cover services that they think by their criteria are medically necessary. We don't have a lot of time, but basically there's a diagnosis involved, usually something more than a Z code, that they think that it's about symptom reduction. It's not personal growth work, that you're actually doing therapy and not just coaching or educational services. So there's a whole kind of list of things that they look for. Now, if you're providing some service they don't think is medically necessary, like a support group or an educational group versus a therapy group, so just like classes, whatever, can a client pay for those services? Of course. And sure, a client can't that's kind of like a human right. A client can pay for whatever they want beyond their insurance. Insurance has the right to say, well, we're not going to pay for those things. But they have the right to pay for things that their insurance won't cover, certainly.
All right. Our next question is from Grace. Would the raise request letter look the same if you're requesting a raise for a group practice, i.e. talking about special skills, training, etc. in a global way, or should you submit letters for each provider?
Well, Grace, I would recommend you contact me. I have sample group raise rate, and for us to set up a consultation, because with groups, no, I write a different kind of letter where I say 3 of our providers are multilingual, and 4 of our providers can provide EMDR, and 5 of our providers have had, are certified CBT. I try to put it all into one letter. First of all, it's more impressive that way, and you're trying to sell them on the spectrum of care you can provide. If you have 10 different letters, first of all, I don't think they're going to read them all, and because they're just trying to get through it as quickly as possible, and you have to tap dance as quickly as you can to say, this is all the great stuff we have. We have multidisciplinary team and blah, 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 blah. So no, I'd say it would look different. Reach out to me, Grace, and maybe set up a consultation, and I can walk you through that and give you a sample raise request for a group.
All right. I think we have time for one more if we can squeeze this in. This one is from Andrea. If I am in network, do I have to accept EAP codes when a client gets them?
I'm not sure I understand the question. If she's asking, do I have to accept an EAP client and you never have to accept a client. if you're in network, let's say with Cigna, they have special EAP coding that goes along with their, so you would be using those codes to bill for the sessions you have with the client. But I'm sorry if I'm not understanding the question.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Barbara. As always, you've provided such great information for everyone. I want to just reiterate that all of our Ask a Biller series videos can be found at SimplePractice / Ask a Biller series. So head over there. And then also Barbara has her next webinar on March 16th and another one on April 27th. So please go to her website, theinsurancemaze.com, to check those out and sign up. Last reminder is that everyone will be getting an email with the recording of this webinar and a copy of the slide deck. Also, as mentioned right before this, you can go to our Ask a Biller series for a recording of any of our Ask a Biller series webinars, and our support page for any support you need with your SimplePractice account. And Barbara's newsletter can also be signed up for at theinsurancemaze.com. Thank you all so much, and thank you so much to you, Barbara, for another great webinar.
Bye, everyone.